good afternoon. Welcome, everybody. This is Tim with Right Rudder Marketing. You are here on the Aviation Business Podcast with Right Rudder Marketing. We have a very special guest today. It's the Women in Aviation Group in Central Florida. So really happy to have them on here. Before we give them the quick introduction, just want to let you guys know if you are an aviation business or a part of the flight training industry, we always invite you to either work with Right Rudder Marketing or even hop on our podcast and talk about what you like doing and what you do. So give us a call. It's 314-804-1200. You can also email us at info@rightruddermarketing.com. All right. So without further ado, let's do some introductions. So who do we have on the call today?
Okay, I'll go first. My name is Aubrey, and I am the membership chair for Women in Aviation in Central Florida.
Welcome.
And my name is Maggie. I'm the outreach chair for the Women in Aviation in Central Florida.
Cool. I guess I'm a pilot, so I kind of know, I've heard about Women in Aviation for a while, and I also have some schools that do some events with Women in Aviation. But there might be some audience members that don't really know nothing about Women in Aviation, the group. They might not be from Florida, so I know you guys are a chapter. Can you tell us a little bit about what Women in Aviation is and what you guys do?
Yeah, sure, yeah. There are several very industry-specific groups and organizations and everything out there. There's groups specifically for mechanics, there's groups specifically for pilots, there's groups for airline pilots only, there's ethnicity and cultural based focused organizations out there, and that's awesome. But Women in Aviation just is dedicated to increasing the number of women in all areas of aerospace and aviation. It's not just focused on pilots. We provide networking, membership, scholarship opportunities, just all for our members, and the international organization has been doing that since 1994. There's currently 154 local chapters. New ones are starting up every year, and the local chapters focus really on the immediate effects of the work in the community, and just provide really more accessible resources to their own members.
Yeah, and I like what Maggie said, but I also kind of want to add to, like, here in Central Florida, we have a lot of aerospace members of our chapter. And so I think one of the beauties of Women in Aviation is it's not just for the pilots. I would say we have a lot of AMPs. We have a college student who is getting her rocketry, and she's building rockets. Yeah, and so I feel like what makes our group stand out a little bit is, especially in the industry, is we're so focused on all of the paths that people can take in aviation. We have FBO managers. We have just anything you could do in aviation.
That's amazing. I think Natalie might have dropped off a little bit. Maybe her internet kind of was blotchy or something like that. So, well, I'm still glad that you're on here. So we got one down, two to go, right?
No, it's good.
So can you tell us, now I kind of want to hear Natalie's story as well. Can you hear kind of what your story was with aviation? How did you get involved first? Maybe it was a discovery flight. Maybe it was family members that might have been involved with it. Maybe you had a inspirational story with a friend that got you involved with aviation. What was kind of like the set point for how you got started with aviation, and how did that eventually branch into working with Women in Aviation in that group?
Sure. So I was originally a teacher, and I was in the middle of getting applying for a master's degree and going into education. And I took a camping trip with a lady, and I just asked her, I was trying to get to know her better, and she just told me, she's like, yeah, my husband's a pilot. And I remember looking at her and I literally said, oh, you can fly planes for a job? And she was like, yeah, you totally can. And so I came home from that camping trip, and I was like, I think I want to try flying an airplane. And so I literally Googled, how do I practice flying an airplane to see if I want to do it. And Google popped up this thing called a discovery flight. And so I took a discovery flight, And I, just like I'm sure every pilot has, the moment I took off, I knew like within my soul that I was meant to pilot an aircraft. And then I remember we went up and we did some maneuvers in my CFI. Obviously, I didn't know it was a CFI, but my CFI, he was like, "Do you want to stall the airplane?" And I was like, "Well, I don't even know what that means." And he was like, "Well, you just stop flying." And I was like, "Great, let's do it." So he did stalls. I had a phenomenal time and I landed and I quit my master's like immediately, and then I went into to flying, and then through my journey, so that happened, and then I got on the ground and I didn't know anybody in the industry. And I just Googled, like, how do I make friends as a pilot? And so then that's when Women in Aviation popped up. And so it actually led me to like the international organization's landing page. And I remember like scrolling through it and thinking, I think I could make some friends here. Like, I think they could tell me what to do to fly a plane. And so I still remember, like, to this day, my first meeting at Women in Aviation. It was right after I took that discovery flight. It was right before I knew anything about anything. And I remember walking in and I was just terrified. Like, I was so nervous because I was walking into this place, like being a teacher, and here were all this kind of untouchable world, you know, from if you don't have family who lives in it, if you don't have, you know, if you've never been exposed to it, it just feels like this very untouchable, unattainable world that you're really not a part of. So I remember walking into my first meeting at Women in Aviation. It was my first time reaching out to anyone in the industry, and my heart was like racing, and I didn't know what I was going to do. And I remember I walked through the doors and immediately I was just surrounded by these women. And I remember they asked my name, and I told them, I was like, "This is who I am. I think I want to fly because like my soul feels it." And they were like, "Girl, you are in the right place." So that was kind of my first introduction. I remember leaving that meeting, that very first meeting, and feeling like I had found a place that was going to not be fake in supporting me, you know, like they were going to actually support who I was and what I was doing.
I think I echo the same experience. I think when I was not in aviation all my life. I supposedly had an uncle that was a pilot, but who knows. All my life I was not exposed to this. And then my dad, he actually bought me a Discovery flight. It was on Groupon. And then he bought me a Discovery flight, and I went on it, and I was like, this is, there's two outcomes to a Discovery flight. Either you love it or you hate it. And whether or not, that person's going to pursue it, even if he loves it, that's really up to that person's, mental capacity and, their motivation and stuff, and the commitment, right? But then I remember going in for like my first couple flight lessons, and like there was a gate code and everything. You had to get like a key in just because it was a towered field, so it was very, the first, school I went to was very locked up. And I was just so nervous, and like, I think after finally getting more involved with the aviation community and actually, making friends with CFIs, other, pilots that are doing it with me, attending like a group ground school, I finally found, a community that is supportive. They're smart. They love what they're doing, and that just, that for me that was kind of what, kept me in the community. So I think it's so important to have that community, whether it's your local airport or even a group like a WAI. I think so. It's such a really good thing that you guys are doing here. What
Well, and I kind of want to jump in on that. Sorry. One of the things that set it apart is I had been a part of organizations that were women focused, and I had a lot of experience, and I feel what sets Women in Aviation apart a little bit from the other women organizations in the world out there is that every single person I've come across, it's like, my goal is to support you on your journey. And when you succeed, I'm like genuinely happy for you. And I'm genuinely joining in that success with you. And I feel as if that is what makes aviation so special. And that's what makes Women in Aviation so special is everybody is just so supportive.
So good. Yeah, I think the support group is a big part of it. you know, I think a lot of people have that. They're kind of scared. I think aviation's kind of like this, like you mentioned it, like if you're not in it already with your family, your friends, and you don't have any like way into the group, you know, it's this kind of like this unattainable. I don't know, like not honestly behemoth. Hey, Maggie's back. Look at that.
Oh my God.
It's okay,
We've
Maggie.
just
We're
been talking.
good.
It's cool. We're talking about.
I don't know. My computer just like quit. I had to download the app and everything on my iPad. So I'm on a different
Okay,
device
there you
now.
glad you can make it.
Thank you for your
So,
patience. Hope I didn't miss
well,
everything.
Aubrey talked a little bit about her story and how she got involved in aviation, and we're just talking about now how if you don't have family that's in aviation, if you don't have a direct connection to it, it's hard to get involved. So it's really, you know, helpful to have groups like WAI, Women in Aviation, you know, even EAA and stuff like that, 99s, and you know, having them, you know, kind of take you under their wing and really be part of the community is really important. And you know, it kind of leads up to well, first off, before I have my next question, Aubrey shared with the group her story and how she got involved in aviation. How about you, Maggie? How did you get involved in aviation, and what brought you into the group, and also how did you get involved with WAI?
Yeah, I had no family involvement in the industry either. It was just something that, as a high schooler, I thought, hey, that looks really cool. I want to try it. And then, you know, as I say, I started flying. I took my first discovery flight, and I never looked back. I have no other marketable skills. Um, so that was in high school. I started my private pilot training. Um, I did join Women in Aviation International, and I got the magazines in the mail. I went to college. I got an aviation degree. I got all my ratings. But there wasn't really any women in aviation involvement as far as a chapter goes or anything in my college. So I was just sort of hanging out, sort of adrift flight instructing and just kind of doing my thing until I moved to Florida and I became involved in the local chapter back around 2008-ish. And it was a very small chapter then. There was probably less than 10 members. And, you know, Aubrey will tell you right now, we have, 50, 60? It's grown a lot. It's become a huge chapter. Yeah. So I've been involved with it almost from the very beginning. I joined about a couple years after they started it,
Wow.
and I just wanted, you know, I wanted opportunities to hang around with women who were also in the industry.
Amazing. You know, so kind of what we were talking about too. Like, so I think you also kind of got entered into the community and also in the aviation group. A lot of people, the topic we were talking about was like, you know, how if you're not in aviation, how do we get involved, or how do we actually, what's our like jumping point to you know, get involved, whether it's in women in aviation or even in just pilot training or even aviation in general, you know, even, you know, A&P stuff, maintenance, engineering, aerospace. I think for a lot of people, it's kind of scary. It's kind of, you know, this untapped territory where they feel that you have to be either like super rich or some type of, you know, part of society that, you know, you're not part of. But that's not true. I don't think it's true at all. So like, what type of advice do you have for people in general, and also, you know, young women thinking about, you know, starting flight training or getting involved in aviation, but they just don't know like what to do. They don't know like how to get involved. What type of advice would you might have for them?
I think one of the biggest pieces of advice that I could present would be, if you have any interests at all, there's a space for you in aviation. So one of the greatest examples that I have is like, I went to go do a tour at an Embraer facility down in Melbourne. And I met with like the head designer, and she designs all the interiors for the private jets. And she really made a big impact to me because she said, my love is interior designing, and I found my place for it in aviation. And I think that's something we try to impart, especially on like Girls in Aviation Day, where we have a whole bunch of places in the industry where you belong. And so another example is I had a really good friend I worked with at an FBO who loved cleaning. Like she just loves to clean. She finds like tons of enjoyment out of it. She started an interior detailing business for aircraft because she liked being able to leave a jet in a way that these millionaires, billionaires would be proud to walk into. So I think that's what makes women in aviation so great. But also, if I could impart it upon anybody, it's you can take what you're interested in and you can make it a part of aviation.
Yeah, absolutely. And we try at our chapter meetings, we have a really diverse group of like guest speakers, especially to try to expose people to all of these different sides of aviation. Our guest speaker last month or a month or two ago was a wildlife expert who worked at the airport. And we learned so much about birds. And so, yeah, you're absolutely right. You can incorporate aviation into, yeah, almost anything you want to do.
That's so true. Like I think for me, like I had a thing with like software design and like software engineering, programming, and that kind of led me to the marketing realm where eventually Right Rudder Marketing was born, and then we do marketing for flight schools. And when I first got started in aviation, I thought I was going to be like airline pilot. I started training to become get my ATP and all this stuff, and I fly a lot for travel for work, and it's probably not the lifestyle for me, but I still love flying. I still love doing it. And I think there's when people think about being a pilot or being in aviation, they always kind of just associate airlines. But there's so much more opportunity within the community to get involved and to do whatever you like. So if you're into design stuff, if you're into cleaning, if you're into detailing, and there's so much opportunity. It's not, you don't have to be a pilot. You don't have to do the road most traveled. There's other ways around it to be involved in aviation. One of the things you mentioned was Girls in Aviation Day. So I have a school that we work with, and they helped host an event like this. So I kind of know a little bit about it. But what is Girls in Aviation Day, and what's all that about?
Yeah, Girls in Aviation Day is our big annual community outreach event. We kind of have really varied the kind of what we want people to get out of it over the years. A few years we've had it held down at a maintenance hangar down at MCO. For a couple years we had it out at the Space Center, which was super cool. This year we've had it, and last year we've had it at the executive airport. Last year we were able to offer an experience for over 300 attendees. We had a huge group come through. And it's just a chance to expose them to all different sides of aviation. We have static displays, we have pilots, we have inside hands-on activities where they can practice like riveting with a mechanic. They can practice learning about air traffic control. They can do little rockets and make paper airplanes and make jewelry if they want to. And we have guest speakers that who are writers and engineers and developers and things. And so you can't be what you can't see, right? So like we want to make sure that we put a female face onto all these careers to let these girls know that that they can incorporate aviation into whatever they want to do.
Yeah, that's really. So we were with a school in I think South Miami that did the Women in Aviation Group. I don't know if Central Florida is the same chapter. It might be a different chapter. What does a partnership? So obviously you have the Girls in Aviation Day, but is there other ways that you can collaborate with say, because a lot of our audience members, by the way, are flight school, either owners or part of a flight school. Is there other types of ways, including the Girls in Aviation Day, that there's any partnership or collaboration that can occur between WAI and, let's say, a local flight training institution?
I mean, we would love that.
Yeah, I don't
yeah,
know
we would love that. I worked at a flight school for 14 years in the same position, and fortunately, I was in a position there where I was bringing in any female student that walked in to do flight training, I'm like, come join our Women in Aviation chapter. It's so cool. And we got a lot of members that way. So just, our chapter members and our chapter officers being out, in the community, we're always looking for opportunities to, reach out. I have been lucky enough to be a guest speaker at some of the high school aviation clubs. And I got those connections from people. One who was someone who had reached out to our chapter specifically asking for a guest speaker. And there was another time, and I was like, sure, I'll do it. There was another time where it was actually another chapter member. She came up and asked. She was president of the aviation club at her high school, and so she came up and asked me if I would come in and talk. So yeah, we would absolutely be open, and we just want schools to know that we are out there, and we're here to help. And I think a lot of the marketing that we do for Girls in Aviation Day also is pushed out to the schools. So we're hoping that we're getting our name out that way too.
What type of?
Yeah,
Sorry.
I agree with what. No, you're fine. I agree with what Maggie said. And another thing that recently happened is we had here in Florida, some of the students have to have like internship type hours in order to graduate high school. And so something that happened recently is one of those high schoolers reached out to our chapter and just asked, is there a way that I could backseat a flight lesson? She didn't phrase it that way, but that's what she was getting at, And so I think that's also another way to collaborate with women in aviation chapters anywhere you are, is just say, hey, we're here. And if anybody ever wants an experience to backseat, I know some of our members would probably love an experience backseating just to see what it's like on the other end of things. I would say that would be a really good way for our flight schools to kind of interact with the chapter.
Yeah, I think there's really the outreach is the main thing with groups like yours. It's really getting connected with the high schools, getting connected with the flight schools as well, colleges, universities, and groups. What is some? So I know you kind of were talking about this already. What are some of besides Girls in Aviation Day and some of the stuff you do at the high school? What are some other outreach events that you guys do to really connect with future members and also with other women in the area that are thinking about aviation?
One of the last things that we did, I wouldn't say it wasn't specifically aviation related, but we were sort of the liaison between one of the hospitals, local hospitals, took an ambulance to this elementary school, and we had made the connection for them through our they were a exhibitor at one of our Girls in Aviation Day events, and so it's not like we can bring a whole airplane, to an elementary school, but they brought an ambulance, and so we were there to kind of help herd the children and help them out a little bit and teach them about that, and they got to go on it and look at it and everything, and it was really cool. But it was a connection that we had made through one of the major hospitals, who was their helicopter nurse team was a connection with us.
Out of all these events, so you had the ambulance come to the school, you had the Girls in Aviation Day, you worked with the flight schools. What's a story that was kind of left? Maybe you heard a story from one of your children or from the women that was in your group, and it was really inspirational that you might want to share with the group. Is there any interesting stories that you might have come across in your experience working with WAI that was really impactful that you might have wanted, that it's worth sharing a story to the group?
We have chapter members who got their start in this industry because of either their involvement in the chapter. One of our girls who's in college right now is in college to be a rocket engineer, aerospace engineer, because she attended our Girls in Aviation Day out at the Space Center when she was in high school. And yeah.
I'll piggyback on that too, Maggie, because I was actually going to share part of her story that I was involved in. directly from women in aviation. So I think one of the kind of misconceptions about our organization is that it's like only for women, but we do have male members of our organization, and that male advocacy is very important in the industry. It's important for men to be able to advocate for us to their colleagues and to, give us a fair chance in the industry. But this lady in particular, she was testing a rocket that she had designed with her. She had like a group that she designed a rocket with, and she used our industry or used our chapter to help find a place to launch the rocket. And so one of the ladies in our chapter, she is the head of GOA, which is the Greater Orlando Aviation Authority. So they work with Orlando Executive Airport and with Orlando International. And so that woman was able to find like an empty concrete pad for her to be able to launch her rocket and test it. And then she later had asked if anybody could help her with, she needed some anchors, I believe. Don't quote me on that. She needed some anchors to like anchor something to the concrete. Well, yeah, there you go. Something like that. One of the men in our chapter, he is a structural engineer for like in his day job. And so he was like, well, actually, I know all about anchoring things to concrete. And so he was like, I can get you some supplies. And I went with him on that trip to kind of like go, look at the concrete site and figure out where they could put the anchors and which anchors they needed to make this test run successful. And I just feel like she is a fantastic example of like why our organization is so successful, because if it was just an organization of pilots, there's no way she would have been able to have access to like all those resources. And I feel, and it all started, back to Maggie's point, it all started from a Girls in Aviation event. And now she's here interacting with the head of GOA, interacting with a structural engineer, and is a very great example of success, I feel.
So obviously the pilots are probably, the main kind of like, okay, aviation pilots. We kind of mentioned a few things like engineers and stuff like that. What are some of the fields that you might have come across that that might not be on the forefront of everyone's mind? So I think you brought up, let's say, detailing was one of them. What are some other
Yeah.
pathways that are in aviation that people might not, be really looking at?
So recently we had a guest speaker who's a seamstress for
Oh my
NASA.
God. For NASA?
And
What?
she,
Really?
yeah,
Wow,
Yeah.
that's cool.
yeah, she sews the.
Sewing the insulation blankets inside the rockets.
Yep,
All hands sewn.
exactly. Exactly. So I'd say that's an example. Obviously, you have your ATC, your AMPs. We have another lady who is the head AMP for United at MCO. All right, Maggie, I don't know. I'm sure I'm missing something.
Yeah, the air traffic control is really cool. Judith Ann is a former ATC as well. One of our chapter members actually works at a company that does air traffic control simulators. So it's not necessarily an ATC job, but it's more of like a techie job. And we have, people that fly drones. We have photographers, people that do, air show photography. So yeah, it's a really, really interesting group of folks.
Wow. I'm gonna change topics here. So you've worked with a lot of women, a lot of men in aviation. You've seen different career pathways, different opportunities that's all available to us. And then all we gotta do is really pick up the phone or just send an email, and then you can get involved really quick. What have you learned after working with some of these people that might have changed the way you looked at life, maybe changed the way you look at your perspective? Giving you a softball open-ended one.
Certainly. No, I mean, I absolutely, when I joined this chapter, I was kind of in let's say like a rut for many years. I had the same job. I was happy. I liked doing it, but I wasn't really, progressing. I was just kind of moving along. And because I loved instructing. And so that's what I was doing. And when I got involved more so with the chapter when the chapter started growing and we started bringing in, all of these really cool people doing all these really cool things, and seeing them, grow and accomplish these things. It really made me less afraid to try new things. And it's really only been in the past 3 years that I've gone on a certificates and ratings blitz. And I've gotten tons of add-on ratings and add-on certificates and learned to fly all kinds of crazy aircraft, just because, the diversity of the group helped me, be less afraid to go out and try those things. So I'm like, okay, all of these people are doing these amazing things. I think I can do it too. And it's been, yeah, it's been amazing.
I would say for me, one of the biggest things that made an impact in my life is I remember kind of in the first year that I was part of Women in Aviation, I was just starting my private pilot training, and I was sitting down with a couple of these ladies who have become my mentors and have, even though they're not pilots, they've mentored me in who I want to be in the industry. And I remember sitting down at dinner one day and I was talking to one of the ladies, and she like looked at me and she said, Aubrey, I can tell that you're going to be successful in this industry. And she was like, one of the biggest things I want you to understand is as you climb this ladder in our industry, you always reach behind you and pull people up with you. And you do it with a smile and you do it happily and without hesitation. And I kind of tucked that back into my mind. And as I've kind of grown in the industry and done the things I've done, I've really tried to live by that standard. A great example that I have recently is I contract pilot on the side of owning the flight school. And I was out on a contract trip in Dallas, Texas, and we were flying a Conquest. And I remember showing up for this trip, and I was super excited because I was gonna take ownership of this Conquest. I was gonna impress the owners of the plane and let them know that like, hey, I want to be your head pilot for this aircraft. And I remember stepping off the airplane, and I was in the car with the captain at that time who was training me, and he looked at me and he was like, the first thing out of his mouth was, hey, I'm really interested in one of your flight instructors taking over this aircraft. And I remember looking at him and being like, are you serious? Like, okay. But it was like in that moment, I've never heard, Laura is the name of the woman who shared this with me. Her voice just came crystal clear to me. As you climb this ladder, you have to reach behind you and pull people up. And I remember calling that flight instructor, and I've shared this story with him and all this, so he knows about it. But I remember calling that flight instructor that night after I had like cried in the bathroom or in like my hotel room because I had just like lost this, contract I was hoping for. And I remember calling him and saying, hey, you're about to get a phone call from the head pilot for this aircraft. And I took a whole bunch of pictures on this trip because I want you to see where all the switches are in the plane. I want you to like know the quirks of the aircraft. And I sent him just like all these notes about this aircraft and just did everything within my power to allow him to like nail that flight with the head pilot. And I remember hanging up from that phone call, and I remember sitting here thinking, this is who I'm going to be. This is who I'm going to be in this industry, is I'm going to lift other people up. Even though I wanted that, it's now his opportunity, and it's my opportunity to bring him to that. So I feel like I would never have had that perspective had I not joined into a mentorship relationship with some of these women. I never would have done that probably on my own.
I think it's so important is like, finding that right mentor, that coach. Whether you're, just starting out your pilot journey and you need to find like, a CFI or even like a fellow batchmate that's, starting and maybe a few hours ahead of you. I think it's so important to find people that have done the thing that you're trying to do. That way, you can skip some steps and learn the shortcuts, and you get to, do good things. So I know we're involved with a lot of communities. Right Rudder Marketing, we're involved with, let's say, Flight School Association of North America, FASANA. We've worked with a bunch of flight schools there. We kind of give our industry take on marketing and all that stuff. Part of National Association of Flight Instructors. We work with King Schools. Me personally, with marketing, I'm also involved with a mastermind that's only does marketing agencies, and we look at what's the changes in the market. And even from my pilot training journey, I think one of my my CFI, he's one of the guys at NAFI. He trained me, took me under his wing, and if you don't have a coach like that, it's just you're not able to see what you can't see, right? So I think it's so impactful what you guys are doing in Women in Aviation. It's so I'm so proud to get and honored to have you on the show, and really love hearing your stories and all that stuff. Let's talk about we talked about kind of the past and what you guys do in general. Let's talk a little bit about the future now. So where do you guys see women in aviation in the next year, maybe 3 years, 5 years, and what are your kind of plans in the near future, and what are some cool events you guys are having in the future too?
Even 5 years ago, I don't think I could have imagined where we are right now. I mean, not even me personally or as a chapter. I mean, it's all been the responsibility of the board, our president, and just our members wanting to get involved and do things. We've talked about Girls in Aviation Day a lot. It is our really big event. I think that's kind of the big thing that we focus on every year. So the bigger and more amazing that we can make that, every year, the people that are going to benefit most from that are going to be the girls in the local community.
When's your next Girls in Aviation Day, if I might ask?
September 20th, Saturday, September 20th. It's a international event. So all of the local chapters, that is the day for chapters, around the country, around the world, to do their programs.
September 20th, and for your chapter, where is it going to be at? Where are you guys hosting it? Or you don't know yet?
It's at the Orlando Executive Airport. Yeah, it's at the Orlando Executive Airport on the east end. It's the GOA building, the Greater Orlando Aviation Authority building out there.
So you guys are, I guess I should have done a little more research before the call, but so I apologize my ignorance. So you guys are a chapter for Central Florida. So how north and south does that go for Florida, and what other kind of you said how many chapters are in? I don't even know.
There's about 154 local chapters. The closest people to us, there is a Lakeland chapter, which is maybe about a 2-hour drive south, hour drive south. And then that kind of covers the Tampa area too, I think. And then it goes up to Daytona. There is a collegiate chapter in
for
Daytona.
Embry-Riddle, I'm assuming, or something?
So,
okay.
Yeah. So we're kind of sandwiched right in between those. So we have chapter members that live north of Daytona who come down for our meetings. We have chapter members that live in Tampa. Bless her heart, she drives over for our meeting all the way from the Space Coast. So for a once monthly meeting, it's pretty doable.
You guys meet once a month, and then you guys talk about Girls in Aviation Day. You do a lot of outreach, and I guess you guys do. Internally, you network with one another and kind of have some.
Yeah, we have a big WhatsApp
there
chat.
You go. So you have a WhatsApp chat, and I'm assuming you guys have some group sessions once a month with all the team members. So that's pretty cool stuff.
Yeah, we try to keep people involved as much as possible.
Exactly right. So we're at about 40 minutes. What I want to do is I kind of leave the last half of the call usually for call to action. So this is going to go out on our social media and all that stuff, and also on our newsletter. We put it on our newsletter. What type of stuff would you like to tell the world, and what would you like them to do? So what's your call to actions for, I guess the biggest one is Girls in Aviation Day next month, right, or September, so you got a couple months for that, right? So what's some call to actions? Do you have a phone number people can reach you at, or email, or how do people get involved with Women in Aviation? I guess let me take a step back, maybe make it more simple.
The international website is WAI.org. It's Women in Aviation International, WAI.org. There's family memberships available. There's student memberships available. So there's a little wide price range for that. Our website, our Central Florida website, is wai-cfl.org. And so we have our contact information and everything on there. We welcome sponsorships on there. We have pictures of all of our activities and links and everything for our members and resources and everything for them.
I guess I'll add on to this too. So if you're interested in being a part of Women in Aviation, I highly encourage you guys to check out their website. If you are a flight school and want to get involved with them, reach out to Maggie and Aubrey. Also, if you're, whether you're a business owner or you're, established in the industry and you want to really support the cause of Women in Aviation, I highly recommend or highly advocate, donating and being involved with the group. So how does that work, Aubrey and Maggie, if someone wants to donate to Women in Aviation?
That's a great question. I am not in charge of donations. I don't do anything with the finances. So I don't know, Maggie, if you know that more specifically.
I don't know if the international organization does something like that. I know you can do endowments, but our local chapter absolutely accepts sponsorships. Across, there's a wide range, and with a variety of chapter benefits. Little perks and stuff if they wanted to sponsor something. So you could sponsor something specific for Girls in Aviation Day, or just a general sponsorship. And then we, put your logo out there on our shirts and emails and talk about you in our meetings. And I think some of them at certain levels you actually get chapter membership included.
Yeah.
So,
and I would say too, something like I personally am super interested in is just anybody in the industry that's not what you typically think of. So we every month when we have our meetings, we always have a guest speaker who comes and talks about their experience in the industry. And one of the most memorable ones I remember was Laura's husband was
he was on the recovery team.
He was on the recovery team for the Hudson.
The Hudson River landing.
Yeah.
The United Hudson River landing.
Yeah, exactly.
He had some really cool pictures.
It was really cool. It was one of my favorites that we did. But I think that I would love to hear from people in the industry who work in aviation, but maybe they think their job's just kind of like boring or whatever, but it's like, hey, nobody even knew that like you could sew for NASA until someone reached out to us about it. Or, we've had an author speak to us, like a children's book author speak to us. So I feel like, to me, that's something I'm always on the hunt for, is who else works in our industry and is a part of this thing that we could have a guest talk to us about it. And as far as sponsorship, I think Maggie hit that pretty well on the head. There's benefits for sponsors and things like that. Our mission is to make this accessible, and I think Maggie and I come from this space where, aviation just should be accessible.
Definitely. So I think Raul, he's our producer. He's been putting some links on the side here. So check out their website. It's wai-cfl.com or .org. I'm sorry. And reach out to the team there and get involved. So that's really, that's how to get involved. Yes. Attend the Girl in Aviation Day. Go to Orlando Airport. Okay.
Yeah, there is a list of local chapters on the international website as well. So if you live somewhere, if you're not in Central Florida, you can, if you just go to the international WAI.org, you can find your closest local chapter that way.
We have a few people on a live audience, so this is being streamed live. So I don't know if anyone has questions, we'll open up the floor. I know we have a few minutes remaining. Feel free to, this chat over here on the side, I don't know who's attending right now, but I can't see their name. So If you have questions, we'll stay on for a few minutes before we terminate the call. But leave us a question. I'll leave that floor open. Meanwhile, while we're waiting for questions, I'll talk a little bit about Right Rudder Marketing and give our call to actions as well. So, if you're a flight school business, or if you're part of the aviation industry, like I said in the beginning of this podcast, go ahead and give me a call. It's 314-804-1200. We help flight schools grow their school, enroll more pilots, and increase their revenue and expand their fleet. So we've done lots of great work, lots of great stories that I've had in my career here at Right Rudder Marketing that I'm so proud of. So yeah, give us a call there, and then we'll be happy to work with you. And also, if you're not even a flight school, but you're part of the industry and you want to be part of this podcast, always same phone number, same email. We're always looking for guests to come on, and we're so honored to have people like Women in Aviation attend our events. So yep. Any questions? Looks we got an empty room here. Oh, a little scared, I guess. So we do have some people on here, and it's going to be streamed up later into our social media. But I really appreciate Aubrey and Maggie. I think you guys did a great job here. Do you have any last words to say to the group, or anything that you want to ask me as myself?
Thank you for giving us the opportunity to do this. I love what I do. I love being on the board of this chapter, and I love being able to reach out and, help expose the world, the community, our local community, everybody, to the things that we do. So I could sit and talk about this stuff all day long. So I really appreciate you carving out some time for us today.
Yeah, and I also do want to tell you thank you for having us here, allowing us to share what we do and how we try to make this industry accessible to people. And so thank you for having us as
Definitely.
guests.
We're honored to have you guys on here. If you guys know any other, you guys have connections with some fun stuff like the NASA person, if they want to get involved and be on our show, I'm always open ears to hear. So send them my way. they'll be on the show too. So we had Lucas give us a comment here that it's not a question, but they just want to say thank you for being on the show. And Kristen as well. She says she appreciates hearing you. Rodrigo over there says thank you. So we do have some listeners on here, and they're giving you support. I guess there's no questions though, but we do have some support from the audience, and we really appreciate everyone that was on the stream. Whether you're an audience member or part of Maggie or Aubrey for joining us. I really appreciate you guys having us, and we'll see you guys next time. So we'll end here, and we'll see you guys around.
Thank you, Tim.
Thank you.